If you're thinking about getting yourself a DJI Avata 360, well then I need to be straight with you from the jump. I've had the 360 in my hands for a few weeks now, and I've flown this in every condition possible. And I've got opinions, good ones, bad ones, and a few moments where I've nearly had a few little accidents, and I'll tell you about that later. Now, this isn't going to be some kind of spec sheet readout with a fancy thumbnail and zero substance. This is the real deal from somebody who's actually been putting serious flight time into this thing. So stop in, because we're going full honest on the DJI Avata 360. So what we're going to cover today is flight feel, camera quality, we're talking controls, weight, its drift, and some stop and distance tests, and whether this thing is actually worth your hard-earned money. And just a quick one, I've been flying the Avata series before, so I've got direct comparison points baked in, and that really matters because the Avata 360 is not just an Avata 2 with a 360 camera bolted onto it. And if you buy it thinking that, well then you might be in for a little bit of a surprise. So first impressions out of the box. Now this thing means business. Build quality is fantastic, and if you're tapping it with your nails and you don't get that hollow cheap ping that you get with lesser drones, this is solid. It's really intentional, but here's the thing that you're gonna notice. It's bigger and heavier than what you might expect. Now we're talking 455 grams. Now that puts it comfortably above the 250 gram threshold. So if you're in Europe or the UK, well then you need to be aware of your licensing situation. Now in the UK, it falls under the new UK 1 class rating, which actually opens up more locations than before. So it's actually a small win, but still check your local regs before you get out there and start flying. Now the prop guards don't fully enclose the props, and it's more open, something like the Avata 2. Now that's really intentional. It helps the airflow and it keeps it more agile when it's flying. But it also does mean that you're more exposed when you're flying in tight spaces. Now, one thing that I will flag immediately, and this is something that a lot of reviewers gloss over, it's these dual fisheye lenses. They're really exposed, and I mean they're really out there. So if you're flying close to things or flying FPV, you've got a lot of risk of damaging them. Now, if you're landing on anything other than a perfectly flat surface, well then lens protection becomes part of your workflow. But DJI does sell replacement lens kits for around $20 to $30. So that's pretty reasonable, and if I was you, I'd get a few just in case. Right, so let's talk about how this thing actually flies, because this is where things get really interesting, and honestly, where I've got a lot to say, having actually put a few weeks of airtime into it. Now, the Avata 360 is heavier than the Avata 2, and that's just physics. And that extra weight, well, you can feel it, especially in FPV mode. The drone is noticeably drifting to the left and right when you're banking, and when you're moving pretty fast and you stop inputs, it doesn't snap and halt the way you might expect it to, kind of like the Avata 2 does. There's actually more of a stopping distance. This is a carry through, and if you haven't flown heavier drones before, well then this can catch you really off guard pretty fast. Now I want to be really clear about this. This is not a flaw, this is just physics. A heavier drone in a stabilized FPV environment is going to carry some momentum, full stop. But it does mean that you have to adjust how you'll fly it. And I'll be completely honest, flying this thing in FPV mode is brilliantly fun, genuinely cinematic when you get it right. But I can see how some people are going to get themselves into bother, especially in tight spaces. This drift and the stopping distance is significant enough that if you're not anticipating it, you're going to have some close calls, maybe even worse, a complete drone wreck. So my honest take, this drone might actually be better flown in a traditional stabilized mode for a lot of people. And not because flying FPV isn't fun, because it absolutely is, but because flying it like a normal stabilized camera drone lets you focus on getting a shot rather than managing the physics of a heavier drone in motion. And look, everyone needs to just accept something. This is the Avata 360. It's a different type of drone. It's not an Avata 2 with an upgrade. It's not trying to be that. It's a 360 FPV style drone, and it behaves like one. And the sooner we accept that and fly it on its own terms, well then the better time we're going to have with it. Okay, so the whole point of this drone, the reason it exists, is the camera system. We're talking two dual 1/1.1 inch sensors We have 8K at 60 frames per second and 10-bit 120 megapixel stills. Now, on paper, this thing is an absolute beast, and the concept is genuinely smart. Instead of framing your shot the moment you fly, which is kind of stressful, especially when your battery timer is ticking, you can just fly and fly a good line, any line, and then you can reframe in post. Now, that can create multiple different angles from a single flight. It's kind of like casting a wide net over your scene and deciding what matters later. For content creators, this is a really liberating way to shoot. But, and this is a real but, there are compromises. When you reframe that 8K 360 footage, you're not really getting 8K out the other end. You're typically looking at something closer to 4K or below, so manage those expectations. Now, other DJI drones will give you sharper and cleaner traditional footage if that's what you're after. Now, let me talk about something that I don't think enough people are flagging: ND filters, or rather the complete absence of them. At the time of filming this, there are no ND filters available for the Avata 360. So if you're trying to follow that 180-degree shutter rule in bright daylight, which you should be, well, then you're gonna have a problem. Higher shutter speeds in bright conditions means that your footage can look too sharp and a bit jittery. Without that natural motion blur, that makes your drone footage look really cinematic. What I've found works best is the early morning or fly during golden hour, or use them overcast conditions where the light is naturally softer. That's where this drone will genuinely shine, and your footage will look completely different. It'll look better and more cinematic. Also, low light is another limitation worth flagging. There's noticeably noise and reduced dramatic range once the light drops, and that's not terrible, but you're not going to want to push it too hard during evening shots. And one more thing, stitching. Now, these two lenses have to be digitally stitched together in post, and most of the time it's seamless. But if you're making sudden directional changes, you're flying close to objects, or you're doing hard stops, well then you can get this stitch line artifact. Now, the only real fix for this is that we can bank our turns and we can do gradual slowdowns, which honestly makes for better footage with this drone anyway. Right, let's talk controls, and this is actually one of them things that I genuinely love about this drone. Now, we have real options here. We have the RC2 controller. We can fly a traditional drone style. Now, flying with the RC2 is exactly how I'd recommend most people start. It feels like a regular stabilized drone, twin sticks and built-in screen. Now, if you're coming from a mini series or any other DJI drone, this will feel really natural from the first takeoff. You don't need a spotter, and you've got obstacle avoidance in normal mode. You've got that spotlight and active track for solo shooting. It's just clean and controlled flying. So in normal mode, we get that super stable, smooth, cinematic experience. Now, this is brilliant for tracking shots and controlled movement. And sports mode opens things up. We're talking a bit faster, it's more responsive, but still very much in control. This is probably where you're going to spend a lot of your time in sport mode. And if you're primarily after that cinematic content, well then I'd upgrade to the Goggles 3 or the Goggles N3 for that full FPV feel. Now, this is where things get properly exciting. You strap on the goggles and the whole experience changes. You're not just flying a drone anymore, you're in the drone. Now, the first person view is fully immersive, and the motion controller actually makes it incredibly accessible, even if you've never flown FPV before. But may I suggest, if you're going full FPV, that you purchase a FPV Controller 3, as it makes the FPV flying style more controllable. And cinematically, the shots you can pull off in FPV mode are genuinely stunning. Flying through gaps, low sweeping passes and dramatic dives. This is the content that people stop scrolling for. But, and I keep coming back to this, the weight and the drift that we talked about earlier becomes much more noticeable in FPV. You need to be thinking ahead, and you need to be anticipating that drift and that stopping distance. One more important thing to flag is that there is no full manual mode or acro mode on the Avata 360. So if you're a proper FPV pilot who wants to throw flips and full freestyles out, well then this isn't your drone. For most of the people watching this, this is actually a good thing. It keeps you in control while you're still getting that FPV rush. Now, let's get real and talk about the downsides. So let's talk about the stuff that genuinely frustrated me, because No one drone is perfect, and I'm not going to pretend that this one is. First, we've covered this, it's the weight and drift in FPV mode. I cannot stress this enough. If you're used to tighter, nimbler drones, this will catch you out. And I've had a moment or two this week where I was flying a tight line and stopping distance surprised me, and I just about got away with it, but not everybody will. And this is a real thing, the battery life. DJI claims around 22 to 23 minutes. In the real world, you're looking at about 16 to 20 minutes, depending on how hard you're pushing it, what mode you're in, and the temperature. Now, that's not terrible for an FPV drone doing 8K, but if this is your main creative tool and you're on a shoot, well then you're going to need multiple batteries, so plan accordingly. Now, the post-production workflow. This is a big one that I think a lot of buyers underestimate. The magic of the 360 footage doesn't happen out of thin air. It happens on your computer. You're stitching, reframing and exporting. Now, DJI Studio handles it well, and batch processing is much better than it used to be, but it takes time, it takes patience, and if you buy this thing expecting to upload straight from an SD card, well then you're going to be kind of frustrated. Let's talk wind, because I pushed this in some gusty conditions and it held up better than I expected. Honestly, the 04 Plus transmission stayed solid throughout, but it's not immune. Strong side winds in FPV mode can exaggerate that drift further, so that's worth knowing. And the lenses, they're exposed and they're fragile. So buy replacement kits, as I said before, and I'll say it again, it's not a deal breaker, but it's something you need to be aware of. I want to spend a quick minute talking about the editing side, because I think it's genuinely underrepresented in most reviews, and it will probably affect your decision. So once you land and you've got your OSV files off the drone, well then you have two main options. You can process it in the DJI Studio and reframe your footage there using their tools, which is pretty solid, or you can export it to a quiet angular and reframe it there. The preset transitions are also a good starting point if you're kind of new to this. You can do things like move from an asteroid perspective to ultra wide. As the drone ascends, we can spin the camera while the drone stays still. We can genuinely get creative, but the payoff though, from one flight, one line, you can pull multiple completely different angles. Now that's the power of the 360, and once you've experienced that kind of workflow, well then traditional drone shootings feel almost restrictive by comparison. So who should actually buy the Avata 360? Now let me be specific. This drone is built for content creators who want that creative flexibility. Now, if you're tired of having to nail that perfect frame in the moment, or if you want to fly a good line and have multiple cinematic options waiting for you in post, well then this genuinely is transformative. It's also great for beginners who want that immersive FPV experience without the terrifying learning curve of a proper freestyle drone. The stabilized FPV mode gives you the thrill without requiring months of a simulator practice. It's good for people who want one drone to do multiple jobs. Traditional camera drone with the RC2, or FPV cinematic weapon with the Goggles 3. Now that's versatility, and that's real, and it's genuinely useful. So who should not buy this thing? Well, pure beginners who are scared of FPV and just want a point and shoot simplicity. There are better, simpler options like the Mini 4 Pro or an Air 3 will probably serve you better. Traditional FPV freestyle pilots who want that acro mode feel, this isn't your drone. Also, people who don't want to spend time in post-production, the 360 workflow demands editing time, and if you want straight out of the camera footage that you can post immediately, well then look elsewhere. And anyone who's going to fly this exclusively in bright midday sun without any ND filters, right now manage those expectations until DJI sorts that out. So the big question, is the DJI Avata 360 worth it? Well, here's the honest answer. It depends on what you're expecting. If you want the sharpest, cleanest, traditional drone footage, well then go and get a Mavic 4 Pro. But if you want a drone that unlocks a genuinely new creative approach to aerial filmmaking, that gives you flexibility in post that you just don't get any other way, and you're willing to put in the flying time to understand its weight and behavior, well then this thing is an absolute weapon. Now, I've had real fun flying this the past few weeks, and I've also had moments of genuine frustration, and I think it's actually the right review to give you because it's real life. The DJI Avata 360 isn't a perfect drone, it's a different drone. So fly it on its terms and respect its weight and anticipate the drift and commit to the edit, and the footage you'll pull off this thing, well, honestly, it will turn heads. So the pricing starts at around $450 for the drone alone. And if you've already got compatible controllers, well then going up to $830, $850 for the Fly More combos, either the RC2 or a full FPV goggle setup for what you're getting. Now that's competitive, especially compared to the competition. So if this video helped you out in the slightest, can you please smash that like button? It actually makes a massive difference. And also subscribe if you're new around here, because I've got more Avata 360 content coming, the best settings, a full editing workflow breakdown, and a head-to-head comparison that you'll probably not want to miss. So drop your questions in the comments, and if you're on the fence about this drone, you can ask me anything. I've got the airtime and I'll answer every single person. I'm Adam from Drone and Lens. You guys have been absolutely colourful, and I hope to connect with you all in the next video.